I'm Diana, 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago I signed away everything I had to my soon-to-be ex-husband, the five-bedroom house, both cars, the real estate company, all of it. My lawyer begged me not to do it. My mother-in-law smirked from the gallery seats. Brittany, my husband's 27-year-old mistress, actually took a selfie right there in the courtroom. And Vincent, the man I once thought I'd spend my life with, smiled like he just won the lottery. But that smile disappeared exactly 47 seconds later when his lawyer finished reading the final clause in our agreement. Before I tell you what happened, if you find this story worth hearing, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. And if you're watching right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back 3 years to the night I accidentally opened the wrong drawer in Vincent's office. 8 years of marriage. From the outside, we had everything. A sprawling colonial house in the suburbs of Houston with 5 bedrooms we didn't need, a Porsche Cayenne for him, a 12-year-old Honda Accord for me. The perfect American dream, if you squinted hard enough. Vincent controlled everything about our finances. I'll handle the money, you handle the house, he told me on our honeymoon, and I agreed. Before Tyler was born, I was a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. I was good at it, but when I got pregnant, Vincent sat me down. The baby needs his mother at home. I make enough for both of us. So I quit. Traded spreadsheets for sippy cups. When Tyler started kindergarten and I picked up part-time remote accounting work, Vincent barely noticed. To him, I was furniture useful, present, and utterly unremarkable. His home office stayed locked. The credit card statements went to his email. I had a supplementary card with a modest limit. Everything else was his domain. What I didn't know was that his empire was built on sand. Tyler came into the world 6 years ago, and from the moment the nurse placed him in my arms, I understood a kind of love I'd never known existed. Fierce, unconditional. Vincent saw Tyler differently. Our son was a legacy, not a relationship. Something to mention at business dinners, but never something to nurture. He missed Tyler's first steps, his first word, every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every bedtime story. I remember one evening about a year ago. Tyler had been waiting by the window for 2 hours, clutching his favorite picture book. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming home? He said he'd read to me tonight." Vincent finally walked in at 11, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his usual. "I'm building a future for this family, Diana. Tyler will understand when he's older." That was the night I realized our son wasn't a priority. He was an afterthought. The discovery 3 years ago, I needed Tyler's passport for a school field trip. Vincent had left for one of his late meetings and forgotten to lock his office door. I found the passport easily, but as I pulled it out, my hand brushed against a folder I'd never seen before. The return address made me pause. First National Bank, final notice, stamped in red. My accountant's brain kicked in. I opened it. 90 days past due, $340,000 outstanding on a commercial property loan. I opened another envelope. Wells Fargo, delinquent account. Then Chase. Then a collection agency. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking. Vincent's empire was hemorrhaging money. The properties he bragged about were underwater. The company was drowning in debt over $2 million, and he'd never said a word. I took out my phone and photographed every single document. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I didn't sleep that night, but I wasn't scared anymore. I was calculating. Building my case. The next morning, I called my college roommate, Rachel Morrison, who worked at a regional bank. I need to run a credit check on myself, and I need to understand what debts might be attached to my name as a spouse. What I learned confirmed my worst fears. Most of the debt was in Vincent's name alone, but he'd taken out 2 loans using both our names, forged my signature, or used an electronic version I'd never authorized. "This is fraud," Rachel said quietly. "You could report him." "Not yet. I need to know the full picture first." And so began my 3-year education in financial survival. I opened a savings account at a different bank. Every month, I funneled what I could from my part-time work. $200 here, $300 there. I documented everything, saved every email, every statement, every scrap of evidence. Vincent had no idea his wife was watching and waiting. The affair a year ago, Vincent started coming home smelling like someone else, a hint of perfume that wasn't mine. A text notification he'd silenced too quickly. Business trips that multiplied overnight. "You should put more effort into your appearance," he told me one evening. "Brittany, she's a new business associate. She always looks put together." "Brittany, The name he said too casually, too often. One night, Vincent left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. The screen lit up. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear the blue tie I like. XOB. I didn't confront him. What would be the point? I already knew our marriage was a facade. I was simply gathering information, building my case, waiting. The first time I met Brittany Lawson, she was wearing a knockoff Birkin bag and Vincent's arm around her waist at his mother's birthday dinner. Everyone, this is Brittany. She's been consulting on some new investment opportunities for the company. She was 27, all blonde highlights and practiced smiles. Vincent finally found someone with ambition, Evelyn announced. Then she glanced at me. Diana, be a dear and help Maria bring out the appetizers. I spent that dinner watching my husband parade his mistress in front of his family while they pretended not to see what was obvious. Tyler sat beside me, confused. Mommy, who is that lady? She's nobody important, sweetheart. The divorce demands 6 months before the final hearing. Vincent sat me down. I want a divorce. No preamble, no apology, just 5 words. I see, I said. What are you proposing? I want the house, the cars, the company, everything we built. You can keep Tyler. I'm not interested in custody battles. The kid would slow me down. The kid. Our son, 6 years old, innocent, adoring, and his father couldn't even use his name. You're sure? You want everything? All the assets? Vincent smiled. I'm being reasonable here, Diana. Most men in my position would fight you for the child, too. I'm letting you walk away with something. All right, I said quietly. I'll need some time to review everything. What he didn't know was that I'd been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Margaret Collins. Rachel found me the lawyer. She's handled some of the ugliest divorces in Houston, and she wins. Not because she's ruthless, because she's thorough. Margaret Collins was in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that assessed me the moment I walked through her door. Sit down, Mrs. Saunders. Tell me everything. So I did. 3 years of documentation. The debt, the forged signatures, the affair, Vincent's demands, all of it laid out on her desk in organized folders. Margaret reviewed each piece methodically. When she finished, she looked up at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time: respect. You've done remarkable work here. Most clients come to me in crisis. You've come prepared for war. I'm not interested in war, I said. I'm interested in freedom. Then let me tell you what your options are. She leaned forward. Based on what you've shown me, you could fight for half of everything. Half of $4.70 million in debt. Margaret smiled. You understand the situation better than your husband does. I've had 3 years to understand it. He still thinks he's a millionaire. Then let me ask you something. What do you actually want out of this divorce? I thought about Tyler, about my savings account, about starting over. I want him to get exactly what he's asking for. Margaret pulled a thick legal textbook from her shelf. Under Texas law, when marital assets are divided in a divorce, the debts attached to those assets can be assigned as well. It's called a liability assumption clause. She opened to a marked page. If one party agrees to take ownership of an asset, they can also be required to assume full responsibility for any liens, mortgages, or debts associated with it. So if Vincent wants everything, then Vincent gets everything, including the $4.70 million in liabilities. Exactly. The key is ensuring the agreement is explicit and legally binding, and that he signs it voluntarily. He won't read it carefully, I said. He never does. Then here's what we do. We draft an agreement that gives him exactly what he's demanded. We include the liability assumption clause on page 47 of a 52-page document, and we wait for him to sign away his own future. The pressure came from multiple directions. Brittany called. Vincent and I are looking at some properties together, and the financing is getting complicated because of the divorce timeline. If you could just speed things along, it would make everything so much easier. Vincent sent emails. My patience is running thin. If you don't sign within 2 weeks, I'll file a motion claiming deliberate delay. Don't make this ugly. Then came the family meeting at Evelyn's house. Diana has agreed to accept Vincent's terms, Evelyn announced. She'll sign the papers this week. Vincent smiled magnanimously. I always knew she'd come around. Diana understands she wasn't really equipped for this kind of negotiation. I sat with my hands folded, saying nothing. You're right, I said finally. I'll sign. I just wanted to make sure I understood everything. Evelyn beamed. Finally, some sense. What nobody in that room understood was that I hadn't surrendered. I just made them think I had. I want to pause here for a moment. Before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, I need to say something to anyone listening who might recognize pieces of their own story in mine. If you're in a relationship where you feel controlled, where someone else manages every dollar, makes every decision, treats you like you're invisible or incapable, I want you to know that you're not alone and you're not crazy for feeling trapped. For 3 years, I stayed silent. Not because I accepted what was happening, but because I was building something in that silence. A plan, a safety net, a way out that no one could take from me. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's strategy, and knowing your own worth doesn't require anyone else to see. If this story means something to you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Hit that like button if you want to help more people find this video. And if you're still here, still listening, comment and tell me. Have you ever been underestimated? How did you prove them wrong? Now, back to the morning of the hearing. The courtroom, January 3rd. I stood outside the family courthouse, feeling strangely calm. 3 years of waiting, and it had come down to this. Inside room 4B, Vincent was already seated, Gerald Hoffman beside him, both men reviewing papers with the relaxed posture of people who believed they'd already won. Margaret was waiting for me outside. How are you feeling? Ready. Brittany had claimed a spot in the front row, wearing a red designer dress. Beside her sat Evelyn, immaculate in Chanel. They'd come to witness Vincent's triumph. We're here for the matter of Saunders versus Saunders, Judge Harriet Dawson began. I understand we have a settlement agreement to review. The agreement was read into the record. Every asset Vincent had demanded, formally transferred to his sole ownership. Miss Saunders, you understand that by signing this agreement, you are relinquishing your community property rights to these assets? I understand, Your Honor. Mr. Saunders, Judge Dawson turned to Vincent. You're waiving your right to have the financials independently verified before signing? Vincent didn't hesitate. I built this company, Your Honor. I know exactly what it's worth. I don't need some accountant telling me what I already know. Then please sign the waiver on page 49. Vincent took Gerald's pen and signed with a flourish. I watched Gerald's face as Vincent handed back the pen. The attorney was flipping through pages rapidly now, his eyes stopping on page 47. The color drained from his face. Vincent, he whispered urgently. Wait, but Vincent was already turning to page 52, signing his name on the final line. Done, my husband announced. The moment Vincent's pen lifted from the paper, Gerald Hoffman's face went white. Vincent? His voice was barely above a whisper. Vincent, we need to stop. What? My husband laughed. It's done. She signed. I signed. You don't understand. Page 47. The liability assumption clause. Judge Dawson held up her hand. Mr. Hoffman, is there an issue? Your Honor, my client may not have fully understood. Your client, Margaret interrupted smoothly, was asked directly if he wanted independent financial review. He declined. He signed the waiver voluntarily. The agreement is executed. What is everyone talking about? Vincent's voice had lost its confidence. Gerald handed him the document, pointing to the relevant clause. I watched my husband's eyes move across the text. The party receiving marital assets hereby assumes full personal liability for all debts, liens, mortgages, and financial encumbrances attached to said assets. Vincent's face went gray. This says I'm responsible for the debts. All $4.70 million, Margaret confirmed. As of your signature 30 seconds ago, Brittany's voice cut through from the gallery. 4 million? What? Vincent shot to his feet. This is fraud. She tricked me. This whole thing. She can't do this. Mr. Saunders, sit down. Judge Dawson's tone left no room for negotiation. I'm not sitting down until someone explains how this is legal. You signed the waiver, Vincent, Gerald said quietly. You specifically stated you knew what the assets were worth. Vincent spun toward me. You knew. You knew the whole time. You planned this. I didn't plan anything. My voice came out steady, calm. I just gave you exactly what you asked for. Your Honor, I demand this agreement be voided. I was deceived. You were not deceived, Mr. Saunders. Judge Dawson removed her reading glasses. The financial records of your company are public. The debts attached to your properties are matters of record. Your wife's attorney included full disclosure documentation in the agreement packet. You chose not to read it. You signed a waiver stating you didn't need to know, the judge continued. This court cannot protect parties from their own arrogance. From the gallery, Brittany's voice, Vincent, what does this mean? You said you were a millionaire. Evelyn was already standing, gathering her purse. Mom, Vincent reached toward her. Don't. The single word cut like a knife. She walked out without looking back. In the silence that followed, I stood. Vincent turned to me, his face contorted with rage and desperation. You destroyed me, he whispered. You destroyed everything. I walked to the center of the courtroom. No, Vincent, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you. For 8 years, you told me I had no value, that I didn't understand business or money or anything important. I kept my voice level. You said I was just a part-time bookkeeper. You said Tyler was a burden. You said I should be grateful you let me stay. His mouth opened, but no words came. I'm not grateful. I touched my grandmother's ring. I'm free. And for the first time in 8 years, I can finally breathe. I don't hate you. I'm not even angry anymore. I just refuse to let you define who I am for one more second. Diana, wait. We can fix this. No. There's nothing left to fix. I walked out of the courtroom. Behind me, I heard Vincent calling my name, heard Brittany demanding explanations, but I didn't look back. I was already gone. The aftermath: 3 months after the hearing, Vincent's empire finished crumbling. The house sold for $580,000, not enough to cover the mortgage. Vincent walked away still owing $320,000. The Porsche was repossessed. Saunders Properties LLC filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The remaining debt, nearly $3 million, stayed with him. He moved into a studio apartment off 290, found work at a small brokerage firm, commission only, from CEO to entry-level sales in 90 days. Summer arrived, and with it a new beginning. Our apartment had transformed from a temporary refuge into something that felt like home. Tyler's drawings covered the refrigerator. Plants crowded the windowsill. I returned to accounting full-time in April. By June, I'd been promoted to senior accountant. Tyler was thriving too. He'd made friends at his new school, joined a soccer team, started reading chapter books before bed. "Mom, watch me," he shouted from across the park, attempting a cartwheel. I applauded from my bench, feeling uncomplicated happiness. My phone buzzed. Acceptance into the community college CPA certification program. Classes started in September. "What are you smiling about?" Tyler asked. "Good news, buddy. Mom's going back to school. Like me. Exactly like you." This small life, this modest apartment, this ordinary job, this simple joy was everything I'd never known I wanted, and it was entirely my own. I want to take another moment here. We're almost at the end of this story, but before we get there, I have a question for you. Have you ever made a decision that everyone around you thought was insane? Have you ever trusted yourself when no one else did? Because that's really what this story is about. Not revenge, not karma, not watching someone get what they deserve. It's about the quiet voice inside you that knows the truth, even when the noise of everyone else's opinions tries to drown it out. For 3 years, I listened to that voice. I planned. I prepared. I kept my mouth shut when everyone expected me to argue or beg or fall apart. And when the moment came, I was ready. Your silence isn't weakness. Your patience isn't passivity. And the people who underestimate you, they're giving you the greatest gift possible: time to prepare while they're too busy feeling superior to notice. So here's my challenge to you. If you know someone who's in the middle of their own silent battle, share this video with them. And if this story has meant something to you, take a second to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now, let me tell you what happened when Vincent finally reached out to me. 1 year later, the text came on a Tuesday evening, almost exactly 1 year after the final hearing. "I need to talk to you. It's about Tyler. We met at a cafe." I almost didn't recognize Vincent when he walked in. The tailored suits were gone, replaced by khakis and a polo shirt that hung looser than it should have. He'd lost weight. His face looked tired. "You look good," he said. "You look happy." "I am. I'm not here to apologize," he finally said. "I know you wouldn't believe me if I did. I'm here because I've been in therapy for 6 months, and my therapist says I need to take accountability for what I did to you, to Tyler. I waited. I was a terrible husband and a worse father. I treated you like you didn't matter. I treated our son like an afterthought. I was so obsessed with my own image that I couldn't see what I was destroying." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to see Tyler. Not to get back at you or prove anything. I want to try to be his father. A real father. If you'll let me." I studied the man I'd once loved, searching for the arrogance I'd learned to navigate. I didn't find it. "I'll consider it," I said, "on conditions." I set my terms: monthly therapy sessions, steady employment for 6 months minimum, supervised visits first, and one absolute rule: he would never speak about me negatively in front of our son. Vincent agreed to everything. I didn't know if he'd follow through, but I'd learned something important. Boundaries aren't about controlling other people's behavior. They're about protecting your own peace. I pulled out my journal that night and wrote, "Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. You choose who walks through them." I chose to give Vincent a door, Whether he walks through it as a better man is up to him. Either way, Tyler and I will be okay. The new beginning September arrived. Tyler started first grade the same week I started my CPA certification classes. We developed a routine, homework together at the kitchen table. Work was going well. My boss had mentioned the possibility of partnership track. For the first time in my adult life, I was building something that belonged entirely to me. The next morning, Tyler and I walked to school together. "Mom," he asked, "are you happy?" I knelt down to his level. "Yes, baby, I really am." He smiled and ran toward his classroom. I stood watching until he disappeared inside. Then I walked toward my future. Before I end this story, I want to share something my therapist helped me understand. Vincent wasn't born cruel. He was raised to believe that being a man meant being in control of everything. When his business started failing, he couldn't admit it because in his mind, admitting failure meant admitting he wasn't a real man. Understanding this doesn't excuse what he did. It just explains it, and honestly, it helped me stop taking it personally. As for me, I had my own patterns to confront. I avoided conflict because I watched my parents' marriage implode. I thought silence meant peace. I didn't realize I was confusing peace with paralysis. What I learned is that silence can be powerful, but only when it's a choice, not a cage. If there's a lesson here, it's this. The people who underestimate you are building their own traps. You don't have to do anything but stay ready. So that's my story. A woman who was told she didn't matter, who spent 3 years proving that she did, not to anyone else but to herself. If this meant something to you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one, and check out the description for related videos. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here until the end. I'm Diana, and I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you know that you're stronger than they think. You just might not have found your moment yet, but you will.